What's going on, everybody? Welcome to 3.5. It's your girl, Honey Jack, and I'm here with my buddy,
Bigfoot Gus.
Bigfoot Gus. Tell us about yourself.
I am a producer. I am a rapper. I am a developer as well as JavaScript artisan. I'm a lot of things. Most of all, I am a enthusiast of macaroons.
Yeah, I just had, what is it, an almond macaroon that you brought over?
We don't know what that flavor was, but we ate it.
We ate it, and we
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
It was almond themed in some way, shape, or form, but who's to say what that was?
Okay, so, this episode, I want to discuss shoplifting. And why do I want to talk about shoplifting? I want to explore what we think of when we think of a shoplifter, why they shoplift. I really want to change how we look at crime. I want us to rethink how we think of crime. Why? Because where does crime come from? It is not only my theory, but science tells us that if you are lacking in basic needs, a place where there is a lot of poverty and people are struggling, you will have more crime. And what does that say about shoplifters? And I know that in any group of people, there's always going to be the outliers of, you're just an asshole, and this is just that's always going to be the case. I know. But in most circumstances, when you're affecting most people in that type of society, what causes people to steal and do illegal things? So I want to talk about this list of most shoplifted items, and yeah, just kind of explore that avenue. What really was interesting to me was a type of things that were being most commonly shoplifted, like baby formula. That really triggers me, and I know I'm not going through this list, in order, but I really want to highlight what emphasizes basic necessities. And baby formula, when it's one of like the third most shoplifted item, it's like, why? Are mothers or people who want to get baby formula, are they just doing it because, one, is it that other people need baby formula a lot, so there's people stealing it to maybe do a speculative type of thing, and which I don't know how realistic that is, whereas I'm going to run up the price of baby formula, and if you need, is that are people doing PS5 shit with baby formula? Or is it people who desperately need to feed their children, and this is part of how they do it?
I can guarantee you, Ray is not on the corner selling bootleg baby formula. that is not, bootleg baby. Yeah, there's no way that somebody's selling bootleg baby formula that they stole and sold at half price. I'm concerned for anyone who will buy bootleg baby formula, and I hope your baby grows up nice and healthy, because the chances are, if you're buying bootleg baby formula, they're already in a situation in which you probably need every bit of help that you can get. At least for me, being and that's why I'm on this show, because I'm a criminal. I've definitely shoplifted before. I can't say that I've ever stolen at least half the things on this list in the sense of baby formula. I've definitely been, I guess you would say, a privileged shoplifter, more along the lines of the assholes that she was talking about, somebody who was just a teenager and trying to rebel against the system. But I also have family members who have stolen primarily for the sake of, what's the word I'm looking for? Providing for themselves. So I do feel like it's kind of indicative of whatever system that we're in, that if you are stealing something along the lines of baby formula, which already is not a expensive thing, that we should maybe take a step back to look at why we even have somebody who would steal baby formula. That's, in my opinion, that should be the question that we should ask. As a previous shoplifter, why would someone steal baby formula? I can say I've stolen things, once again, for the sake of being a teenager and being a rebel. But when my cousin took diapers from the Kids R Us, he was not selling those diapers. he needed those diapers.
That's beautiful. I mean, it's not beautiful. It's horrendous, but
It
just
can be beautiful in its own way, for the struggle.
your anecdotes, they really touch on just the concept of the importance of basic needs. I hope my voice is coming in, but the importance of basic needs being met and the effect that it has on people. And I really want to, with every episode, encourage a paradigm shift in our thought process. Something that, and we might hear the same messages kind of over and over again, and that's because it's to live in it. This is not just stuff to memorize, just because it's a way of life, and to view crime in a particular way will shift how you view everything. Why does crime happen? There's this book. Sorry, sir. There's this book, The Teachings of Ptah-hotep.
They won't be able to see that.
They won't. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot. We're a whole silhouette right now.
Yeah.
We only have darkness. Well, there's this square that I'm holding in my hand. I'm going to still read from it. Is called The Teachings of Ptah-hotep, the oldest book in the world. It's about, I want to say, like 2500 BC, around then this was written. And one of the lines it talks about is written by Egyptians. It talks about basic needs, and when people don't have it, what happens to you. Okay, here you are. Be generous as long as you live. What leaves the storehouse does not return. It is the food in the storehouse that one must share that is coveted. One whose belly is empty becomes an accuser. One who is deprived becomes an opponent. Therefore, do not have an accuser or an opponent as a neighbor. Your kindness to your neighbors will be a memorial to you for years after you satisfy your needs. This is fucking 2500 BC. You know what I mean?
It's a long time ago.
Like, we've known, as humans know what it takes to live a life that is about the well-being of not only humanity, but holistically the planet. I would even argue the universe. But in order to have humanity thrive and succeed, we have to think holistically.
And I would like to go along some of the other items of this list. Some of them being things that, once again, as a previous shoplifter who shoplifted for the sake of being a teen rebel, never shoplifted to take care of myself. Maybe one time, I guess I'll regale you guys with that tale. Some of the other things on this list have been clothing, smartphones, laptops, alcohol, cosmetics, as well as razors. So here's the craziest thing about razors. I want to talk about that really quick. So being a black man in, I would say, a hood community, some people may know is like southeast Washington, D.C., growing up there, and then growing up in the adjacent neighborhoods, Oxon Hill. I won't go through all the hoods or whatever. A razor is an item that's only used for so many things. Some of it being to cut up drugs, some of it being to defend yourself, some of it being in jail, keeping in your mouth to still defend yourself. To have that being one of the most stolen things outside of prison. For me, knowing why people use razors outside of prison, it's definitively to shave. A lot of the people that I knew who stole a lot of the things on this list, I go from razors to laptops, were usually stealing things primarily to get a job. Many of the people in my direct life were people who were just trying their hardest to do something legally as much as they could, because they came from a life of, illegal prosperity, where if they did something illegally, they received an award or some sort of reward back, either from the government, either from stealing from the government, either from selling drugs, either from just some level of prosperity. And that shift is oftentimes so difficult to handle for them, to go, hey, I need to put on a suit and be clean shaven and go into this workforce. A lot of the things on this list are to me, indicative of that shift, where you are going from a place where you are doing things illegally, but you have this sense of freedom because you are yourself and doing everything that you can to survive, to this rigid system of control where now you have to abide by everybody else's rules and you don't even have the tools to do so. And that brings you to number 6 on this list, laptops. I can definitively say I've stolen laptops to resell them. But the funniest thing about laptops is I've never sold a laptop to somebody who didn't need it. It was rare that I was selling a laptop to someone who was just either looking to resell that laptop or just get another laptop. It was oftentimes to another family, or even the people who bought stolen laptops that I had stolen the most were mothers who needed those electronics for their children. And of course, if I steal $1,000 laptop, I'm probably going to sell it for $300 or $500.
Why would you steal? Oh wait, no, you're gonna make money. Never mind. That was a dumb question. Like, you didn't pay for the laptop, so whatever money you get on that is lit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was the same thing with phones, is that, well, maybe not the exact same thing with phones. With most phones, you resell those just because somebody wanted that phone, right? So back when I was shoplifting, I was a teenager, right? This is back when the Razr phone was out. The Razr flip phones, the Motorola Razr. So stealing that was like a lot because those things were at the time $800, right? So you could resell that for $400 or $300. That would be the only time that I felt like I could resell something without any emotional connection to it. But laptops, there was always some level of emotional connection. There was never a single person who bought a laptop from me, and mind you, everyone knew that they were stolen. No one bought a laptop from me thinking he got this through respectable means. He's definitely an Apple vendor selling this laptop out the back of a bus, right? Everyone who bought one knew completely that they were stolen. But the people who bought them from me were never, at least from what I experienced, bad people. And like I said again, the majority of the time they were mothers. And I can only imagine at the time when I was a teenager, we're talking about like over 13, 12 years ago, right? I'm 30 now, so like 18 to 19, that's 2008, 2009. What are most teenage moms doing? They're going to school.
Yeah.
This isn't even for their kids,
Yep.
right? They are going to school to better themselves. So what does that say about the scenarios that we're in society when not only can I make a profit from selling this item to someone who needs it, but the person who needs it already cannot get it, to the point where if they did get it, they had to go through contemptible means just to get it.
I just get paranoid sometimes. It's not recording.
It's okay.
Yeah, and that's really deep because like it's a weird kind of form of like civil disobedience sometimes. I gotta remember to speak up, but it's sounds like sometimes, or a lot of times, it's kind of a form of civil disobedience, or that's sort of how I want us to sort of think about this, because we all feel that our system is unjust. And kind of what do we mean by system? Because I would argue we live in a global system that is dominated by Western nations, headed by the United States. That's sort of how. And then what does that system look like? I would see it as like a primarily market-based system where everything, even your needs, are in the market, and then what is the results of something like that. And I think that we're all kind of living in that. And the thievery, the stories that you were talking about stealing laptops, but when I steal laptops and I sell them, like acknowledging that this is a need for people, and you have people in your lives that are in need, and in a way this is providing a service to the community. I don't feel bad when I hear about shoplifting, primarily because I feel that the corporations that are being stolen from steal from us on a daily basis, steal our time, steal our labor. We don't receive what our labor is worth, yada, yada, yada. And not only are people struggling, but even people who fall under the category of they just steal because it's fun. I don't know what the percentage of that is, but I still see that as a response to our system of oppression. I see things like cosmetics, I see things like alcohol, this, that, and the other, where someone might look at that and say, oh, that's frivolous. Like, it doesn't mean anything. They're just bad people. They're just criminals. But even alcohol, even cosmetics. I mean, why do you drink alcohol? A lot of people do that to ease the pain of what's going on, of their suffering. Cosmetics, I mean, look good, feel good. Like, these are all, in a way, touching on things that people desire for their well-being. Like I was reading from that book about someone whose stomach isn't fed, they become your accuser. Someone who's desperate, they become your opposer. And also, if we want to, Plato Republic, there's a passage in there that describes how it kind of touches on, you're never going to 100% get rid of like crime necessarily, but if a society is structured in such a way where needs are met, the spirit is, you're meeting the needs, spiritually, emotionally, what have you, it's like you decrease the possibility as much as it possibly can be decreased, the possibility of crime. And then kind of what is crime? It's what someone else deems is illegal. And then that's a whole different discussion of what is and isn't illegal, and is that necessarily wrong or right because something's illegal.
And I think you are touching on a subject that, at least for me, a lot of people don't want to. Where not even just universal basic income, which I'm pretty sure some of our listeners would think that I'm going, where but more along the lines of, do we have to do this? Do we have to have the system that puts us in these scenarios in which we feel like we have to struggle, fight, or do what we have to do? Because there's two types of crime. There's heinous crime, and then there's conditional crime, at least in my opinion. And of course, heinous crime are things that, like, pedophilia, rape, just straight up murder, someone being a psychopath, people doing damage to people that is just, in general, just quite evil. And I think we can all agree that that is quite evil. Then there's conditional crime. There's the crime that you could say that the Bloods and the Crips perpetrated, where they were trying to protect themselves from each other, as well as the police department enforcing rules upon black people in their communities that would essentially lead them to ruin, right? You could say that MS-13 have been born out of these same scenarios. There's a lot of conditional crime where, of course, we're talking about shoplifting, but even beyond that, right? What were the first big name, people committing crime? There were bank robbers, right? Bonnie and Clyde. Even in our American culture, we look at them almost as if they are celebrities, even though they do wrong, primarily because we feel justified to do so. We feel entitled to do so. Why would we feel entitled to be, to give our admiration to criminals? Right? Human beings don't work in that way. We feel entitled to give our admiration to criminals because we don't think they're criminals. We think that they are doing essentially something that either we would like the courage to do, or we would do in that same situation. They're providing for, protecting, and caring for themselves and their loved ones. Of course, Bonnie and Clyde, yes, they were criminals in the sense that they went overboard. They were willing to kill people who did not need to die for their admiration, but we still admire them because on some lower level, even though a lot of the populace do not agree with how extreme they were, we still feel that sentiment and that theme of we are willing to do what we have to do for the people that we care about as well as ourselves. And that is, to me, the relationship that we currently have with shoplifters. It's one of the reasons why I've been caught shoplifting by a security officer and by a police officer, and I was let go. Shoplifting is a civil crime that is high enough that you can put anyone in jail or to some degree of detention if they were ever to commit it in front of a police officer or around a police officer. And I've done that several times. But I was always either let go, reference to my parents, or reference to the owner of the store that I was shoplifting from. Typically because as human beings, we have this understanding that this is a lower level crime. What constitutes a lower level crime? Something that doesn't hurt anyone. Really, like definitively, it doesn't hurt anyone on a explicit direct scale. I would say that, and I would suggest that we should start looking at a lot of crimes the same way, outside of heinous crime. Why is someone committing gang crime? Why is someone committing violent crime? Why is someone committing spousal abuse? What led them to this moment? And shoplifting, for me, is just the base of that. It's the lowest level of why is someone taking something that they could ordinarily pay for. And for me, and I feel like a lot of people, it's the answer is already there because they don't have the money to pay for it. Why don't they have the money to pay for it? Because they're in a system that disallowed them to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We didn't even talk about the first one on the list, which is meat.
Oh, yeah. Meat is a big one. Meat is, meat is almost, I wouldn't say it's American, but protein is extremely important for any diet. It is the building blocks of a lot of us. All of us. I wouldn't even say a lot of us. It is the building blocks of the majority of our species is protein. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about shoplifting and people are stealing packets of meat, you cannot get more survivalist than that. Mm-hmm. When somebody is saying, hey, I have myself or my baby to look after, I need to get the thing that is going to allow them to grow and build cells and be better people.
Exactly. Now, this is a list of the most shoplift items. It doesn't talk about the percentage of, shoplifting and what those stats are. But this is interesting to see, like, when shoplifting does occur, what are the items? And that's crucial because if we look at the items, like we've been saying, you can think of scenarios of like how this is someone's need in some way, and that's what's important. Really trying to shift our thoughts about our system, because I'm thinking about, like, we persecute shoplifters, we persecute the common folk all the time. Meanwhile, if you're extremely wealthy, you can literally do the exact same shit or worse, and it's usually much worse. Okay, like we have most of these multinational corporations, all of them actually, multinational billion-dollar corporations have work on slavery, and I don't mean like, oh, it's kind of like slavery because we telling them what to do. Like, no, like we talking about picking cotton, nigga. Look up picking tomatoes in Italy. Okay, you still have
or
African
coconuts
or fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Everything.
Most agricultural development outside the U.S. is borderline slavery.
Most development of anything today is based on slavery. Like, not even just exploitation, really. Like, you can classify a lot of this as just straight up either hyper exploitation or just slavery. I would categorize it as freaking slavery. And I mean that of, like, people coming from, for example, Ghana, because, a foreign company wanted to come in and build gas, oil refineries and things, and move them off of their land and not give their land back, really, or destroy it and not do anything about it. And so they can no longer fish, which was their livelihood, and now they have to figure out what else to do. So what is it? I'm gonna go to Italy and pick tomatoes. And what is that? They don't even give them a house. They have to build their own fucking shack with minimal resources, and there's usually no electricity. It's completely run down. There's like the ceiling be caved in. It's literally like worse than a slave shack that you would get on a plantation. They work on plantations. They're called plantations. You know what I'm saying? Where they are living in the worst possible conditions, away from their family, separation of family. You know what I mean? All these parallels of slavery back then.
The destructuring of communities.
that's still happening today all over the world with every single product that we in the affluent countries interact with.
And that all falls back to what the shoplifter is. The shoplifter is a initial symptom of what more is to come. As a teenager, I shoplifted for the sake of the enjoyment. I shoplifted for the rebelliousness of it all. But there was one time that I shoplifted that kind of my last time shoplifting when things became different for me. And essentially, it was the day that I took something that I needed, which was a different feeling than ever before. Before that, I was just a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old that would just put stuff in my pocket and walk out the gas station and feel a sense of celebration that I was sneaky enough to get away. The very first time that I took something that I needed was when I was at the Giant around my corner and I took dish detergent. And essentially, it wasn't a Ocean's 11 type scenario where it was something crazy tricky. I just put the dish detergent pretty much underneath other items that I already had in that bag because I was already shopping there, but I knew that I didn't have enough money for it. So I put it underneath. They did not really ring it up. I put all the other items that they did ring up back on top of it, and I just walked out. The alarm actually, funny enough, did go off, but the security guard just said, "Oh, it goes off all the time." I'm pretty sure you've experienced that, where an alarm might go off and you don't even have anything on you, or it's just some crazy stuff. But the security guard said, "Oh, that thing goes off all the time. Go ahead about your way, sir." And that moment for me just made me think, this is the first time that I've taken something that I've needed, and I don't like this feeling. And I don't ever want to feel this way again. Before, it was just me being a rebellious teen, and it was always fun. It was whatever. It was anything that was important. It was candy bars and soda. But this was the first time that I needed this thing because my clothes were dirty, and I had a job interview that I needed to go to within a week. I do present the question, how long do you think it would be before someone goes from that feeling and not having any reciprocity for it to something much more heinous, much deeper, and much stronger? Before they are saying, hey, I'm going to take something else that somebody else has. I'm going to take something that somebody else has regardless of the situation because I need it this bad. Shoplifting is a system. Oh, well, it's a symptom. Sorry.
It's a symptom. Damn, that was great. You have a lot of great stories. Actually, no. When I say great, I don't mean like, oh, that sounds like awesome. But in terms of,
I don't take it that way.
Explaining what this is all about, and kind of proof, like living proof of these ideas of the importance of basic needs. We're all living proof, though, and we're just here trying to make people aware of it. We just want to shift the paradigm of thought, change the way you think about the world, because that's necessary. We have to do that. We already know about climate change. We already know. I don't know if people realize how close to nuclear war we've been over the past several decades.
That's a whole nother episode, y'all.
That's a whole nother thing, but it's still related to all of this. But yeah, we just want to bring awareness because we believe that awareness and perspective, I should probably say perspective, is how you can shift your actions to something that is collectively useful to us all. And I want to talk more. I want to kind of talk more about the sort of the deep, dirty side of humanity to explore why those things might be occurring in the world today. Because I think once we get to that essence, we'll all start to see the patterns And that's all we really need, is for people to pick up the patterns, because as human beings, we're gonna move towards the similar thought process once we all have the same. I shouldn't say same information as in like this information and no other information, but it's sort of like, even if you gather all the information that's possible, I do believe that we as humans will come to similar streams of consciousness. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do, is present as I don't want to exclude information. Obviously, we, if anything, are trying to bring in information that's not really talked about, that's suppressed even. I like going after information that's actively suppressed, because I'm like, why is that actively suppressed? What are you hiding?
And more oftentimes than not, as it pertains to shoplifting, one of the reasons why shoplifting does not get publicized is for this very reason, right? If someone were to steal diapers from a Target, does the Target really want to be known for persecuting that man to the point where he was sent to jail?
Mm-hmm.
This is why these things are suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, image is worth something in this society. And the image should not be worth anything. Who you are, as opposed to what people think about you, should be completely separate. Mm-hmm. Because what people think about me does not have any level of bearing on whether I can hit a nail with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to what you said, where a lot of things are suppressed because in this society that we're living in currently, we say, hey, I feel like you will not be able to hit that nail the same way that this guy can hit that nail. And you might go back and say, well, what are you basing that on? Well, he is someone who I do like, and you are somebody who I don't. Mm-hmm. Don't. And essentially, that is a very negative outcome. Well, not negative outcome. That is a negative way to look at these situations, primarily because they have no bearing. But since we are looking at them that way, we open ourselves up to a place where we can be controlled for how we feel about certain services, avenues, things that we want to consume. Mm-hmm. That issue is a huge issue in society right now. So that is one of the reasons why shoplifting still to this day is one of the most underreported crimes. It's a good thing that most companies don't really want to prosecute someone to the point of ruin for shoplifting. But it's also another thing when companies don't want to be known for prosecuting someone to the level of ruin for shoplifting, but that person is someone who tried to get a job with that company, tried to move up in society, tried to do everything they can. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, this image is worth more than the ideal of the preservation of the people that they very simply want to protect. They are saying our customers are always right, but we don't care if our customers are safe. We don't care if our customers are provided for. We don't care if our customers have a good level of living to them. We just care about how we look to bring more customers in. Right. And that is a part of our system.
Bring the customers that can afford our products in.
Exactly. And if you can't afford our products, we're not going to tell anybody that you can't afford our products because of us.
Right. So, yeah, I hope that this has you thinking about crime differently, thinking about the system, at least starting to peek into the system a little bit and how it affects us individually, and how the negative aspects of our society are usually systemic. It's not an individual thing. Like, they're just these bad apples. No, it's the orchard. It's the garden that everyone's in. That's the apples are in. That makes the bad apples. So, and I wouldn't even say they're bad apples. Really, I wouldn't even say they're bad apples. There's a poem by Khalil Gibran called "On Good and Evil," and the opening is "Of the good in you I can speak, but not of the evil. For what is evil, but good, tortured by its own hunger and thirst."
Damn, that's deep, homie.
Yeah, and that's what this feels like. People are trying to be good, And I know this from firsthand experience. Like, I try to be good. I have a friend who is literally like, he's one of the most competent people that I know, but who is like, he's like, I steal. He's poor. I mean, he's broke, but I think it's stupid that he's broke because
You
he
talking
works.
about me?
No, I'm not talking about you.
Oh, okay. Because I fit all of those.
That's
That's
many people
100%
do.
me. Yeah.
So many freaking people do. But no, like he lost his job because he was injured on the job, because the job put him in a very precarious situation that an injury was probably inevitable. But you know, him trying to do everything right with the system, with unemployment, with whatever he needs to do, like he's just, everything's like was like falling apart, and he, long story short, you know, doing everything right and not getting anything in return for trying to go through the proper avenues to make sure he's financially okay. Everything he can. Nothing's working. So now he's kind of like, either I'm trying not to steal, or that's what I do right now because you know, I don't want to, but what else am I going to do? And that's what a lot of people are. A lot of people in the position of, people are trying. I meet more people who are trying to not do illegal things. They talk about how, like, I'm really trying not to, either illegal or, like, really suspect things. Like, I'm really trying not to do this, but, like, I am struggling to survive. And I see that so often. So really, like, think about that. Why is that? When you have a mass amount of people, that a significant percentage of people that are thinking like this, who have a common thought process, we have to stop and think, what is this framework that we're all living in? What is this environment that we're all sharing that's causing these things? And I would argue, at least with shoplifting, with most crime, I would argue all crime, it comes down to basic needs and our ability to not only access them, but I would even say not only access them, because I would want it to not just be, I need to work and do some arbitrary ass tasks in order to earn a thing that I turn in to get my basic needs. I would like more direct involvement with my basic needs, something that doesn't need a middleman. And just because we have the capability, we didn't even say this part that's so important. We have today, and for a long time, the ability, the competency, and the resources to make sure everybody on the planet has housing, education, medical, food, transportation,
and safety.
And safety largely comes from your needs being met, your neighbor's needs being met. We have that capability today. This is artificial scarcity that we're dealing with. An example is before the pandemic, before COVID, vacant houses outnumbered homeless people 5-1. So for every one homeless person, there are 5 vacant houses. Why? In the United States. Why?
And because they cannot pay for them, because the system that we are in makes it harder for them to pay for them than to not.
And then what do homeless people do? Because they can't be in homes. Like, it's common sense. A lot of this is common sense, but that's important to acknowledge. If all of this is common sense, then why don't we all practice this? It's because our system is also intentionally feeding us particular information all the time. So hopefully we are people who will at the very least give you a different way of thinking, plant a seed in you that you'll walk around with, and maybe it'll bloom into something.
And once it blooms, my name is Bigfoot Gus. If you want to reach out to me for child support, yeah, that's all I'm going to really say about that one. That name's Bigfoot Gus.
And I am Honey Jack. You know me previously as Sierra, so what I was going by. I also go by Jack the Butte. I play music. I actually made the beat for the opening to 3.5. And I'm thinking about maybe he's a musician also, so you might see some music come up on the stream sometimes. But yeah, I'm Honey Jack, Bigfoot Gus. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned something. I don't know how to end. You know how there's a cool slogan at the end of shows? I don't know how to end it yet.
Shoplift.
Shoplift.
If there was a mic to drop. You're probably recording that. That's actually the best way. If there was a mic to drop.